Why might most of our modern client practitioner models dismiss psychology's older lineages? And while the modern sciences undoubtedly contribute enormously to our health and well-being, whether that's psychological or physical, in their laser focus on modern research, have they missed something important? I mean, human psychology has been pretty much the same for thousands of years, right? So many of the problems we seem to grapple with today just seem to be equally reflected back at us in exactly the same way in the writings of, say, early Greeks or Asian cultures and many other cultures. And while a lot may have changed around us, a great deal of our internal operations have remained remarkably similar. We fall in love, we feel desire, we seek meaning, we fall into depression, and all the rest of our human experience. There are many reasons why our modern psychological sciences and the practitioners engaging with that feel more comfortable and safe writing that great workhorse of contemporary empirical research. And certainly falling into the thinking trap that everything old and traditional must be best and better can equally land us in some very, very hot water. I mean, I don't believe slaying one's children will improve our agricultural yields or change my destiny, and nor do I think that miasma was the responsible factor for my cancer many years ago. But all too often, we do throw the baby out with the bathwater in service of the latest fandangle. I mean, it's you. So it just has to be better and best, right? After 20 years of working with clients, what I am sure of is that this mindset is not only disingenuous, but it potentially robs us of many areas of great opportunity within client work, that's for sure. The disingenuous side is simply that the traditional world has still worked its way into the modern psychological sphere. It just found itself some fancy new duds to make it a little bit more acceptable to current clinical practitioners. Look how mindfulness is now on everyone's lips. You can't help but trip over some expert voice telling us it'll fix everything from clinical depression through to finding self-compassion. And it is an incredibly powerful set of practices. But they all come from very ancient practices formed on the Asian subcontinent well over 2,600 years ago. And whether a coach, a therapist, a teacher, a workshop guru, mindfulness is still now the go-to tool for almost every scenario. So much so that it's been given the pejorative sobriquet of McMindfulness. You heard that? Think it's unkind? Well, it does depend on where you sit, particularly with something like that. You see, it highlights the very problem when modern practitioners grab hold of something with this vast long tail of wisdom and don't actually understand the context. They tend to do business only with the parts they grab and they can easily understand. And say with mindfulness, they grab hold of a tool or a technique or an intervention or a study, makes you a little bit more present or relaxed, yet they completely miss the vast long tail of the great Buddhist Dharma. These aren't some relaxation tool or a way to feel a little bit better about yourself. They're part of an entire great path of freedom, ease, and relief from suffering. They're the awakening path, the great way of the Buddha. I'm reminded even of the great Jung's attempts with around the same area. His depth psychology, for example, tried to unite the mythic archetypes with the newly emerging psychology for practitioner work that they were developing. But even that, to me, did what we moderns always do. Try to fit them into something very, very neat and ordered and hierarchical so we can just have a diagnose and intervene strategy. But the world he was trying to explain, whether the ancient and the mythic or the inner and the psychological, doesn't really fit very neatly onto a spreadsheet. It's wild, promiscuous, rambunctious, and very, very uncertain. This now leads us to the door of opportunity that I spoke about before. All those being left on the table by a modern, what shall I say, myopia. And there are many. Take, for example, the difference between merely teaching someone a few meditation hacks compared to supporting them to engage with the deep reflective rearrangement of self and relationship to the world and life itself, that the path, the mindfulness path, actually points us to. So also beyond the hurdle of the practitioner world, the other one here we have to talk about is the actual willingness of clients to take up a bigger challenge. Most people just really seem to want a quick fix, and this ain't that. None of the more traditional oriented work is, in fact. But also, let's be honest, all practitioners know that if a client isn't really willing to get stuck in and do some work, real work, then all your best bag of tricks isn't going to make much difference at all anyway. So that leaves me wondering whether part of the issue here isn't cultural, that we moderns simply just want a hack or a pill or for someone else to fix us without us having to put in the effort. It certainly seems that way, and certainly seems the way our current system, certainly for psychological and medical support, is set up, right? Just leave it to the doctor. But we humans don't work that way. What you put in is what you get back out. I mean, many of the types of transformations that we or people come seeking through modalities like therapy and coaching have certainly been part of the human landscape for a long, long, long time. And in that longer part of the journey, they've been managed often through what Western anthropology has come to collectively call rites of passage. This term came out of the work of ethnographer Arnold van Gennep in the early 20th century, who saw a very similar pattern that emerged across human cultures, all human cultures, for managing and facilitating important transformational experiences. And certainly one of the big ones was that developmental journey into becoming an adult. Now, van Gennep captured this whole process in three simple terms: separation, where we leave behind our current world or sense of self or something; transformation, or later also called liminality, where one undergoes experiences, change experiences, usually ritualized, some kind of ordeal or something like that, in order to challenge them, to grow. And then the final of incorporation, where an individual prepares for and then re-enters back into their world, their life, but they're a very different version. Now, I don't know about you, but I already see a remarkable pattern here. I always did, and one that already maps very neatly to the work that client practitioners already do. Certainly I was already doing. I mean, clients come, they have to leave something, right? Their beliefs, their fixed views, their old sense of self, their patterns of the world, their relationships, their jobs maybe. And then through our work with them, they're supported into expanding that view, to opening up, to seeing something bigger, to coming through this unformed way of being into something new. And then we help them prepare to become that new one outside in the real world, right? It's exactly the same pattern. And while this framework can also be used to describe even things like, say, the marriage ritual. Someone comes in, they're single, they go through a ritual in front of all the community and they leave and, hey, presto, they're a couple. Very similar. But in the traditional world, these kinds of experiences, certainly that sort of movement into childhood to adulthood, is often managed through interactions in the natural world. The natural world is a big component in this. And there's something about that is deeply important. And we certainly already see how in the modern psychological sphere that it's already been told to us that how wonderful it would be if we go out and do a bit of forest bathing or listening to some birdsong and so forth. All very good. But this ain't that. In the traditional world, it's often a whole lot more than that's being brought on by coming into the natural world. It's something that takes us from what's ordered and steady and feels safe and protected into a place that's a whole lot less certain. And there's something very important in that. Now, a version of that rites of passage I participated in, and many have, you may have, I was up in the wild Canadian Rockies out solo for several days, and this was the home of the wolverine and the black and the brown bear and all sorts of things with big fangs and teeth. No food, just a bottle of water, box of matches and a tarp. That was it. But what I learned was that only in the face of that type of risk, when I was in the face of that type of risk, some kind of very big change was able to manifest, something that was astonishing to me. Now, of course, this kind of experience isn't for everybody, and also it's not something you can take into every session. It's just not practical. But what I firmly believe is that as you will get back out in proportion to the investment asked of you and what you put in. What these experiences do in bringing us face to face with the reality that right now, here, in this very moment, it could all go, everything. What that does is bring something really remarkable. And why I believe that this part is the important missing, or one of the very important missing opportunities, is that whether out there in the wild thinking that any moment I might be dinner, or here in a safe office, uncertainty is nonetheless still stalking every one of us in exactly the same way. Out there, yes, I get to see it very close and learn from it. But here, how do we let people step close to that here? And if we always play it safe with just a few nice conversations in the clinic or the session or personal development workshop, for example, then we're never helping people to truly engage with that ever gnawing inner voice that does actually know, always knows how close and existential the world really is. It's always there. We just drown it out with all of our stuff. But we have to understand that there are no guarantees and really be with that. That no matter how much money or assets or accolades we accrue, any moment, every moment is as good a one for us as the next, to be claimed and to wake up to that fact. And I think this is one of the big missing opportunities, and one that I'm ever trying to bring a little bit closer into my work. How about you?